Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Militan Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Manapeta Apeta Krityam Rapayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravobi Jus Tam Sarvabhutam Hridayam Munimana Tosmi Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshay Kiptashtikamari Tarangamadye Kripa Maitram Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Tavevasmi Najivami Tvayavina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanana. Be careful out there. The first part of the road is kind of icy. Yeah. Pancha Kaupatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we're going to hear Sri Caitanya Charitamrita Mahaprabhu. Big, what is it called? Social protest. They're going to advance on to the palace of the Kazi. Jai Maharaji, have a safe trip. Okay. Stay in touch, don't forget us. Okay. So, we begin by offering obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padmanitya Bhavishta Om Vishnu Padasto Tatsat Sri Simad Abhaya Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada and Sri Guru Pada Padmanitya Bhavishta Om Vishnu Padasto Tatsat Sri Simad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, unto our exalted Rupanu Guru Varga, all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So, the Kazi has broken the mridanga. He's returned home. The devotees were greatly shocked that they were forbidden to chant Hare Krishna, and they submitted their grief to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we heard this. Lord Chaitanya ordered, "Go, perform sankirtan today. Today I shall kill all the Muslims." Now, Srila Prabhupada gives a very interesting purport on that. And you might wonder, what? That's pretty strong. Well, aren't we non-violent? Oh. No. But you have to, after all, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita on the battlefield and told Arjuna to fight. But you got to remember, by this time, the Muslims had been invading in India 300 years, maybe more. And they had killed tens of millions of people by now, and forcibly converted others, destroyed temples. They were attacking the entire culture here, and not just killing the people, but killing their entire culture. So, Srila Prabhupada says, Gandhi is known for having started the movement of nonviolent civil disobedience in India. But about 500 years before him, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started his movement of nonviolent civil disobedience to the order of Kazi. So, the Prabhupada saying this is nonviolent, even though Mahaprabhu is saying, I kill the Muslims. How do we reconcile? He says, it is not necessary to commit violence to stop the opposition from hindering a movement, for one can kill their demonic behavior with reason and argument. Not always, but this is the idea of purification, Following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whenever there are obstacles, the Hare Krishna movement should kill the opposition with reason and argument, and thus stop their demoniac behavior. If we become violent in every case, it would be difficult for us to manage our affairs. We should therefore follow in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who disobeyed the order of Kazi, but subdued him with reason and argument. And, as Srila Prabhupada has mentioned in his purports, all the obstruction and blocking that was going on all over the world by government and police, devotees kept at it and used the legal system to overcome these obstacles. And in some cases, time. Like in Russia, there was no legal recourse for the treatment they received until, well, there was some. They got, I think it was Jimmy Carter's wife, the president at that time. His wife made a big issue of this internationally through the UN and others to put pressure on Russia not to torment not just Hare Krishnas, but other religions also. And ultimately, when that government fell, then religion was able to be practiced. But before that, it was very difficult there, very scary. So Mahaprabhu actually, in an article called the Gauranga Samaj by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he writes about 3 levels of people who we consider to be part of the society of Mahaprabhu, those who look on him favorably. And of course, the topmost are those who are his devotees, understand his ontological position, right, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, coming to teach the Juga Dharma, right, in the mood of the devotee, but still God himself. Then the second class are those who, maybe from a scholarly point of view, or even devotional point of view, they don't necessarily recognize his godhood, but they recognize him as a great devotee, right? Also admiring Mahaprabhu. And the least aware, but still respected, are those who see Mahaprabhu in historical context. And they see him as a social reformer, as a teacher, religious teacher, but also as a social reformer, because he did oppose the application of the caste system as it was existing in India at that time. And they focus on that because that's what Gandhi focused on. Gandhi was also nonviolent, but he wanted the mistreatment of the lower castes, the Shudras, and the outcasts to stop, because the other Varnas were not really upholding their end. You know, the Brahmins were not real Brahmins. The Kshatriyas were corrupt administrators and politicians. Vaishyas were just cheaters. So why the Shudras have to bear the burden of your so-called Varnashram system, right? In a certain sense there. Srila Prabhupada wanted to reestablish Varnashram, but in its proper way. At any rate, so Mahaprabhu says, continue the chanting. So, returning home, all the citizens began performing sankirtan. But because of the order of the Kazi, they were not carefree, but always full of anxiety. Of course, are they coming? And so, understanding the anxiety within the people's minds, the Lord called them together and spoke to them as follows. In the evening, I shall perform sankirtan in each and every town. Therefore, you should all decorate the city in the evening. Because Navadvip is the central city, but, you know, all these outlying little areas are towns. That's how it works. Each little collection of, some towns were mostly brahmanas, some were merchants, some were farmers, right? All these little towns, they're all connected to the central city, but they were individual towns. So, and at that time, Srila Prabhupada said, Navadvip was composed of 9 small cities. So the word Nagare is significant. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to perform kirtan in each of these neighboring towns. He ordered the city decorated for the function. So he continues to instruct. Mahaprabhu says, in the evening, burn torchlights in every home. I shall give protection to everyone. Let us see what kind of Kazi comes to stop our kirtan. Mahaprabhu was absolutely fearless. And the Chaitanya Bhagavat leading up to this, the devotees had been receiving threats. Srivas Thakur, they threatened to throw his whole house into the river, into the Ganga, and call the Muslim soldiers to take him away. and the other devotees were under similar pressure. But Mahaprabhu was walking up and down the Ganga completely carefree, chanting loudly, being his devotional self. And the envious persons were looking at him and said, "Look at him! Who does he think he is? Defying the Kazi in that way, he'll bring torment and disaster into all of our heads." But Mahaprabhu was completely carefree. And he told Srivas, "Why are you afraid? I'll go see the Shah himself." And then he described a whole way in which he would convert the Shah and everybody there. Right? So in the evening, Lord Gaurasundar went out and formed 3 parties to perform kirtan. Purport, Srila Prabhupada says, this is a scheme for performing kirtan in a procession. During Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, one party was composed of 21 men. 4 people were playing mridanga, 1 leading the chanting, and 16 others striking kartals, responding to the leading chanter. If many men join the Sankirtan movement, they may follow in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and form different parties according to the time and the number of men available. And during the large processions, for instance, during the Parikram times in Navadvip and Vrindavan, but especially in Navadvip, you see this, all of these different kirtan parties will have their own banners. This mat, Chaitanya Saraswat mat, Chaitanya mat, the Gaudiya Samiti, all these different groups will have their own kirtan parties. And when Gurudev had his kirtan parties, they were so large that he divided them up. Like the ladies had their own party. This was the ladies' party, and the ladies were leading, and that was a very energetic party. And then he had a certain party of Bengalis, some villagers, towns had their own party. He had like 4 or 5 different groups, and each group had its own cart with, the loudspeaker and all, because it went for miles, so it was like that. So, in the front party danced Thakur Haridas, and in the middle party danced Advaita Acharya with great jubilation. Lord Gaurasundar himself danced in the rear party, and Sri Nityananda Prabhu moved with Lord Chaitanya's dancing. So just like in the Rath Yatra parade, they had 7 different parties. But in the main parties established by Mahaprabhu, Haridas Thakur was a dancer, Advaita Acharya was a dancer, Vikeshwar Pandit was a dancer, Nityananda was a dancer. But in this case, Mahaprabhu himself is a dancer in one of the parties, and Nityananda stays with him to protect him. So then, by the grace of the Lord, Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur has elaborately described this incident in his Chaitanya Mangala, which later became known as the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Right? Performing kirtan in this way, circumambulating through every nook and corner of the city, they finally reached the door of the Kazi. Murmuring in anger and making a roaring sound, the people under the protection of Lord Chaitanya became mad through such indulgence. Srila Prabhupada explains that the Kazi had issued an order not to perform kirtan, congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord. But when this was brought up to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he ordered civil disobedience to the Kazi's order. Lord Chaitanya and all his devotees, naturally enthusiastic, although agitated, must have made a great noise with their loud cries. Yes, in fact, he's mentioning that this is described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. It said that they had torches, they were playing cartels, and they were playing cartels and carrying torches at the same time. Many of these persons, unknown to them, even themselves, manifested 4 arms so they could chant and carry torches and play kirtan at the same time. Right? And some of them were chanting very loudly, "Kill the Kazi, kill the Kazi." They were angry. They were angry. So, goes on to say, Kirtanera dvanite kaji koila gare tarjana garjana shuni nahoya bahire. The loud sound of the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra certainly made the Kazi very much afraid, and he hid himself within his room. Hearing the people thus protesting, murmuring in great anger, the Kazi would not come out of his home. Purport. The Kazi's order not to perform sankirtan could stand only as long as there was no civil disobedience. Under the leadership of the Supreme Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the chanters, increasing in number, disobeyed the order of the Kazi. Thousands assembled together and formed parties, chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and making a tumultuous sound of protest. Thus the Kazi was very much afraid, as naturally one should be under such circumstances. In fact, they had hundreds of thousands of people chanting. The kirtan party stretched for miles. You could see it in the evening because it was night, these torches. And so the Kazi, he's administrator, local mayor, governor, but they might have a small garrison of troops, enough to intimidate people under ordinary circumstances. When you have hundreds of thousands, what are, a few dozen soldiers with little spears going to do to that? They're all afraid. So Prabhupada goes on to explain, in the present day also, people all over the world may join together in the Krishna consciousness movement and protest against the present degraded government of the world's godless societies, which are all based on all kinds of sinful activities. And since the time of Srila Prabhupada, you could say that it's actually gotten worse. The Sankirtan movement has become more established, but the demoniac activity and the degradation of the appreciation of religion and the excesses of intoxication, illicit sex, and so many things, it's astonishing. So, Srimad Bhagavatam states that in the age of Kali, thieves, rogues, and fourth-class people who have neither education nor culture capture the seats of government to exploit the citizens. This is a symptom of Kali Yuga that has already appeared. Right, and they just lie to them continually to promote their own selfish interests, waving the flag of religion, waving the flag of good government and concern for the welfare. But people go into office poor, but they're put up by wealthy people, and they say, we'll get you elected, but then you must do our bidding. And they do, and they make laws favorable for the elite, while talking a good game for the poor people, but they never do anything for them. And they themselves become enriched. You look at the condition of so many politicians. I won't mention their names, it's not necessary, but there are so many of them. They come into Congress with nothing, and after just a few years, they have 10, 20, 30, $40 million, right? Hundreds of millions. One of our recent presidents had been a senator for 1 year. He and his wife had practically nothing. Now they're worth $400 million. They have mansions in 3 different places. They're super wealthy, and they go on like that. They can go out and give a speech at some corporation, and they get $500,000, $1 million, just for giving a speech. This is how they continue to pay them off. So the people are controlling the government in this way. People cannot feel secure about their lives and property, yet the so-called governments continue, and government ministers get fat salaries, although they are unable to do anything good for society. The only remedy for such conditions is to enhance the Sankirtan movement under the banner of Krishna consciousness and protest against the sinful activities of all the world's governments. The Krishna consciousness movement is not a sentimental religious movement. It is a movement for the reformation of all the anomalies of human society. If people take to it seriously, discharging this duty scientifically as ordered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the world will see peace and prosperity instead of being confused and hopeless under useless governments. There are always rogues and thieves in human society, and as soon as a weak government is unable to execute its duties, these rogues and thieves come out to do their business. Thus, the entire society becomes a hell, unfit for gentlemen to live in. There is an immediate need for good government, a government by the people, with Krishna consciousness. Unless the masses of people become Krishna conscious, they cannot be good men. The Krishna consciousness movement that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra still has its potency. Therefore, people should understand it seriously and scientifically and spread it all over the world. The sankirtana movement started by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Kanda, 23rd chapter, beginning with verse 241, which states, "My dear Lord, let my mind be fixed at your lotus feet." Following Lord Chaitanya's chanting, all the devotees reproduced the same sound he chanted. In this way, the Lord proceeded, leading the entire party on the strand roads by the bank of the Ganga. When the Lord came to his own ghat, or bathing place, he danced more and more. Then he proceeded to Madhai's ghat. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Lord, was known as Vishrambar, and he danced all over the banks of the Ganga. Then he proceeded to Barakona Ghat, then Nagariya Ghat, and traveling through Ganganagara reached Sumilia, a quarter at one end of the town. Right? Sumilia is up, keep going up the road, past the Yog Pit on the right, past Srivasangan, and then up a ways the road turns left. This is where Sumilia is.
He was known as Vishnubar from his dancing?
No, Vishrambar means one who maintains the universe, protects the universe, all persons. Yeah. But by his dancing, he was purifying and protecting and uplifting the world. So Vishrambar. Yeah. All these places surround Sri Mayapur. After reaching Sumilia, the Lord proceeded towards the Kazi's house, and in this way he reached the door of the Chand Kazi. And yeah, if you keep going in that direction, making that left, you come to that place, which we still go to, with that champak tree and everything. Sumilia is where Parvati, Mahamaya, went to do meditation and to get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Right. So there they are. Naturally, some of the people who were very much agitated began to retaliate the Kazi's actions by wrecking his house and flower garden. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur has elaborately described this incident. Yeah, it was just like terrifying for the Kazi. Thereafter, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reached the Kazi's house, he sat down by the doorway and sent some respectable persons to call for the Kazi. When the Kazi came, his head bowed down, the Lord gave him proper respect and a seat. Srila Prabhupada explains in his purport that some of the men in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's civil disobedience movement were agitated because they could not control their minds. But the Lord was thoroughly peaceful, sober, and agitated. That's important. Even trying to fulfill a spiritual purpose, if you allow your mind to get agitated, you can do some things that might be a little inappropriate, right? I can remember plenty of times doing that. You have to be very thoughtful, sober, in order to, even in trying circumstances. And so the Lord, even though he was being followed by hundreds of thousands of angry people, Bengalis, many eternal associates, it's the Dom, but they were still very agitated, and who knows what they might do. But Mahaprabhu set the example, setting very peaceful and sober and unagitated. Therefore, when the Kazi came down to see him, the Lord offered him proper respect and a seat, because he was a respectable government officer. So that even though it's the Kazi's home, the Lord's saying, oh, please sit down. He's the host now. All right? He's complete control of the situation. Thus, the Lord taught us by his personal behavior. In pushing on our sankirtana movement of Krishna consciousness, we might have to face difficult days, but we should always follow in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and do the needful according to the time and circumstances. Right? Always be very sober, right? In aware of the whole situation, of the whole purpose. So, next verse, Mahaprabhu says, in a friendly way, the Lord said, Sir, I have come to your house as your guest, but upon seeing me, you hid yourself in your room. What kind of etiquette is this? He's putting him on the defensive right away, right? The Kazi replied, well, you have come to my house in a very angry mood. To pacify you, I did not come before you immediately, but kept myself hidden. In Muslim etiquette, they have a very elaborate formal system of etiquette as well. In the Jaiva Dharma, there's a discussion between, what's his name? The friend of Advaita Das, Digambar, childhood friend who they went their separate ways after their youth and education, but they were like childhood friends, which in India means lifelong friends. But Digambar, he was very enamored by the Muslim culture. He had served in the courts of kings, etc. And he spoke very glowingly about their etiquette and their polite ways and how, you would receive a guest and not become angry. And if you go to a Muslim's house, they're supposed to receive you. Just like in Vedic culture, receive sadhus, at least a place to sit, at least water, and kind words if you have nothing else. So Mahaprabhu was pointing out to him, oh, you didn't receive me. But the Kazi is saying, oh, wait, no. Everybody was very angry. I wanted you to calm down a little bit. So that when we did meet, everything would be nice. Now that you have become pacified, I have come to you. It is my good fortune to receive a guest like your honor. So, and the Kazi goes on, in our village relationship, Nilambar Chakravarti Thakur was my uncle. Such a bodily relationship is stronger than such a relationship is stronger than a bodily relationship. Srila Prabhupada is going to explain that. Nilam Bar Chakravarti, that's the father of Mahaprabhu's mother, right? So Srila Prabhupada explains, in India, even in the interior villages, all the Hindu and Muslim communities used to live very peacefully by establishing a relationship between them. The young men called the elderly members of the village by the name Chacha or Kaka, uncle. Right? And men of the same age called each other Dada, brother. South India, they do that too. Right? They have a different name for uncle. What is it? Mamu, right? And even children, when we were living there, they would address us as uncle. They could speak English, but they'd call us uncle. Oh, uncle, uncle. And in this way, there was a friendly relationship. There were even invitations from Muslim houses to Hindu houses and from Hindu houses to Muslim houses. Both the Hindus and the Muslims accepted the invitations to go to one another's houses to attend ceremonial functions. even until 50 or 60 years ago, that would be around 1910, he's saying, 1920. The relationship between Hindus and Muslims was very friendly and there was no disturbance. We do not find any Hindu-Muslim riots in the history of India, even during the days of the Muslims' rule over the country. Conflict between Hindus and Muslims was created by polluted politicians, especially foreign rulers, and thus the situation gradually became so degraded that India was divided into Hindustan and Pakistan. Fortunately, the remedy to unite not only the Hindus and Muslims, but all communities and all nations can still be implemented by the Hare Krishna movement on the strong basic platform of love of God. So he's pointing out that people in general can get along, but it's corrupt politicians that fan the flames of enmity and division, right, for their own purposes. Like they wanted people, when they got freedom from the British, there was no idea that Pakistan and Bangladesh would be cut off. India was one big place, right, under the British. But there were Muslim politicians that have their own interest and Hindu politicians that have their own interest. So they're fighting for control, and the British agreed to divide them up, right? And that served the British purpose because that's what they had done all the time. Create enemies, divide them, and make them fight against each other so that you can control them, right? So that's continuing to this day. And the atrocities done by Muslims to Hindus and Hindus to Muslims under the encouragement and guidance of these corrupt politicians is so horrific. And the stain of that continues to this day. So then the chant Kazi goes on and says, Nilambar Chakravarti is your maternal grandfather, right? The grandfather on his mother's side. And by this relationship, you are thus my nephew. When a nephew is very angry, his maternal uncle is tolerant. And when the maternal uncle commits an offense, the nephew does not take it very seriously. So he's saying, well, you may have done something wrong. I may have done something wrong. Let's calm down. We have this relationship, right? And there's something else about this, that when Mahaprabhu refers to him as uncle, he's saying it with a special emphasis, because as Krishna, Kamsa was also his uncle. Kamsa was the brother of Krishna's mother, Devaki, in Mathura, right? So they had that relationship, and Krishna killed him, right? Krishna killed that uncle. So this uncle, Chankazi is actually Kamsa in Krishna Lila. And so the remnant of that relationship and mood, that is being invoked when they have this conversation. So in this way, the Kazi and the Lord talked with each other with various indications, but no outsider could understand the inner meaning of their conversation. And the Lord said, my dear uncle, I have come to your home just to ask some questions. So we're going to stop here, because now they're going to have their conversation. And Mahaprabhu is actually going to purify the Chand Kazi and give him prem, Krishna prem. But first there's going to be dialogue, which has import for anyone who reads this, about the deeper hidden teachings of even in the Quran. So anyway, we'll stop here and continue tomorrow. A little bit shorter today because we had to start late. So we offer obeisance to Srila Prabhupada, so kindly giving us a reminder about our real purpose. So many devotees fighting on Facebook, taking sides in political battles, when neither of these sides are the solution to the problems of the world. This is Srila Prabhupada's message over and over. This will not help the world, being a Democrat, being a Republican, being a Tory, being a Labor Party, whatever it is. whatever country you're in, Congress, VJP, whatever these divisions are, right? That's just a game, friends and enemies. It's never ending. The only thing that will fix society is if we become strong devotees, chant Hare Krishna individually, publicly, and gradually purify the population in general, and then they will see the way, and the leaders, these corrupt leaders, will no longer be able to control them. Right? So, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Gurudev, all glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's glorious Sankirtan movement, Gaur Premanande. Haribol, Haribol.